Hi, this is Miss DeVito. Today I'm going to show you how to make a class favorite, cheesecake. For this recipe, you will need 2 pounds of cream cheese at room temperature, 2 cups of sugar, 5 eggs, 2 2/3 cups of heavy cream, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. For the crust, you're going to need 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs, 2 ounces of melted butter, and 2 tablespoons of flour. You will also need a wooden spoon, a rubber spatula, a whisk. I'm using 2 different types of pans for my preparation. I also need some larger pans for a water bath, a strainer, and a scissor to cut my parchment paper. All right, so let me show you how to start off. I have 2 different pans here. One is a regular 9-inch cake pan, and I also have a 6-inch spring form pan that's traditionally used for cheesecake. You can use either type of pan that you choose to, and I'm going to show you how to prepare the cheesecake in both of these pans. So what I like to do is I actually like to line the bottom of both pans with a little bit of parchment paper, but I need to make it into a circle. So in order to do that, I take my rectangular sheet, I cut it in half, then I fold it like a book, and then I fold my edge into the spine of the book. And then I crease the paper, and then I'm going to measure it. I take the point, I put it all the way into the center, I fold it where the edge of the pan would be, and then I cut the parchment paper so that when I open it, it's going to fit right in the bottom. Sometimes I spray a little pan spray into the bottom of the pan to help it stick, but it's not really necessary. As you can see, it fits perfectly on the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing for my larger pan, folding my parchment paper in half, closing it like a book, and then folding the bottom right-hand corner into the spine of my so-called book. Just making sure that you crease the parchment paper along the way because it makes it easier to cut it. So again, I'm going to measure from the center, and then I'm going to cut it to the right size for this pan. Okay, you open it up, press it into the bottom of the pan. Again, if you want to put a little pan spray on the bottom, you can do that. So now I'm going to show you how to make the graham cracker crumb crust. So I'm going to take my 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs, I'm going to take my flour, and I'm going to take my melted butter, and I'm going to combine them together well. If for some reason you wanted to put a different type of crust on the bottom, you could add nuts to this crust. You can also take Oreo cookies and just crumble them the way that they are in a food processor, and they would stick really well together, so no additional butter or flour would be necessary. The cream filling from the Oreos helps it bind together for the cooking process. So I'm going to mix the butter in until it's well incorporated. Okay, it turns into looking like wet sand almost when it is completely mixed. Okay, so I'm going to take half of this crust and I'm going to place it in the bottom of this pan. If you want to make just one cake, you can have all of the ingredients that I have spoken, but the recipe on the first slide is for one cake only. So I spread the crumbs all the way around the bottom of the pan, and then I start to press it in. When I feel like it is even throughout the whole bottom of the pan, I'm going to take something that's flat and just press it down a little bit further. If you want to use your hand to do that as well, you can. We just want to make sure that it's even and it is pressed together well so that when it bakes, it will stay together. Before I bake it, I want to make sure that no water gets into the bottom of my springform pan. So what I like to do is I like to take a piece of aluminum foil and wrap it all the way around the bottom of the pan. This will ensure that I still have a nice crusty crust on the bottom of the cheesecake. I'm going to bake them for 15 minutes at 350 degrees until they're golden brown. So now I'm going to prepare my cream cheese filling. So I'm going to take my cream cheese and I'm going to combine it well with the sugar. It is really very important that the cream cheese and all the other ingredients are at room temperature for this process. Having them at room temperature will make them easy to mix by hand and will also help not form lumps in your batter, okay? If it is cold when you are mixing it, what's going to happen is that more lumps are going to form. So after you have combined all of the sugar and the cream cheese well, you're going to start to add your vanilla and one egg at a time. So we're going to slowly incorporate the egg into our mixture. These eggs are also room temperature. After I combine my first egg completely, I'm going to add the second, the third, all the way to the fifth egg until it's well combined. You can see that my batter is really nice and smooth. So at this point, I'm ready to add my heavy cream. I'm going to use the whisk for this portion so that I can make sure that I combine this heavy cream well into the cheesecake batter. You can prepare this recipe in a stand mixer or with a hand mixer as well. But make sure that you follow the steps the same way and that you are still using room temperature ingredients for the process. So I'm going to whisk this gently to incorporate all of the cream. And when it's fully incorporated, I am ready to put it into my baking pan. But I have one more step. So I have finished baking my crust. And what I like to do is I actually like to strain my batter to ensure that there are 0 lumps. So you take a small strainer and you're going to ladle the batter into a smaller bowl. And in order to get it to pass through the strainer well, I take my rubber spatula and I mix it through. And it helps push any now I'm ready to pour it into a little bit more quickly. So I'm going to gently pour it on top of the crust. And I'm going to actually fill this up until about 1/4 of an inch from the top of the pan. So if you look at, I have 2 different size pans. One is really tall and one is really shallow. They're both taking about half of this recipe. So I want to make sure that I strain every last bit and get everything out of the bowl. And now it's time to bake. I place my cheesecake in a larger pan for the water bath, and then I take them to my 325-degree prepared oven. I'm going to pour cold water into the bottom of the pan, halfway up the side of the cheesecake pan. This is going to help the cheesecake to bake more evenly. It's also going to form steam in the oven, and it's going to help the cheesecake rise while it's cooking and also going to help prevent it from cracking. So the water bath is essential for success in this recipe. After about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, I'm going to check my recipe. I'm going to shake the pan. If the center is not really jiggly anymore, it's ready to go. I'm going to take it out, I'm going to wrap it, and I'm going to cool it overnight. As you could see, I've taken it out of my refrigerator, it's cooled, and I'm getting ready to prepare my cheesecake. You're going to need a knife, an offset spatula, some parchment paper, a cutting board, and a cup of hot water for your knife. So I'm going to unwrap my cheesecake, and I'm going to show you how to unmold them and cut them professionally. So I have my 2 cheesecakes here. The first one I'm going to show you how to unwrap is going to be the small one in the springform pan. I'm going to unwrap the aluminum foil from the bottom of the pan. Be careful just in case there's any water in there. I'm going to take my heated knife and I'm going to glide it around the outside edge of the pan. This is going to help loosen it. I'm going to dip it back in the warm water periodically so I can make sure that the edges are smooth and not jagged. So once I go all the way around, I can open the pan. So you just release the clasp slowly and then lift the top portion of the pan away. And now we have to remove it from the bottom of the pan. Remember, we have that parchment paper on the bottom, so we have to remove that for service. So what I like to do is I like to take a sheet of parchment paper. You can use plastic wrap or wax paper if you have. And I like to just flip the pan over onto a cutting board. All right, and the bottom of the pan should come right off. And then I peel the parchment paper away. And now you can take a plate or a serving platter, place it on the bottom of the cake, and then flip it right back over gently. Because it's cooled overnight, it should not fall apart, and it's easy to transfer. So now I have my regular cake pan. I'm going to start with the same process. I'm going to take my heated knife, and I'm going to bring it around the sides of the pan. Just notice that I'm constantly drying the knife after I dip it in the water, because I want to make sure that I'm not adding any excess moisture to this cake. So once you go all the way around, you're going to take it to the stove and you're going to heat the bottom of the pan. And this is a very, very, very quick process. We do this to release any of the fat from the bottom of the pan so the cake easily comes out. Now I have an electric stove, but you can definitely do this on a gas stove. It's actually much easier. I place it on my heated coils or my heated burner for about 10 seconds, okay? Not much longer than that, because we're not looking to cook anything. We are looking to just release the cake from the pan. So after about 10 seconds, I'm going to take it off, and then I'm going to bring it to my cutting board. I take a piece of parchment paper, and then I take my cutting board, put it on top, and flip the pan over, hit the top of the pan a little bit, and out comes the cheesecake right away. Okay, take off the parchment paper from the bottom, and I'll just show you that you can easily flip this back over, and it's ready to be served. So now I'm going to just show you how to cut your cheesecake. You need a hot glass of water and a sharp knife. You're going to heat your blade up. You're going to wipe any of the water away, and then you're going to slice the cheesecake. Now I'm just cutting one slice here, but you can do this for the whole cake. Just make sure that you heat the knife in between each time you go through the cake, because the cheese will stick to the blade and will make a mess. You can see how nice and creamy the cheesecake is, and there's a nice layer of graham cracker crust on the bottom. So we hope you enjoyed this recipe. Please share with us if you create this at home. If you like this recipe and want to see more like them, please give us a like and also subscribe to our channel.